Welcome back to the deep dive, where we really try to break down complex stuff into something you can use right away. So if
Right.
you're learning English, or really any tough skill, you probably know that feeling, that dreaded gap. You got the knowledge, right? You know the verbs, the words, but then someone asks you something, and you just freeze up. It's this like terrifying space between knowing the rules and actually, speaking smoothly. Our mission today, we're going deep on a philosophy that kind of flips things around. Talk first, think later. We're looking at sources that really try to pull apart those mental blocks, showing how perfectionism, that's the real enemy of fluency.
Yeah, what's really striking in the material we looked at is how they all land on this core idea. Fluency is much more about flow, about momentum, rather than just hitting every grammar point perfectly. We're digging into some really practical, maybe even counterintuitive strategies, things designed to build what the sources kept calling conversational muscle memory.
I love that phrase, muscle memory. It sounds less like hitting the books and more like, I don't know, training for something physical.
Yeah.
Which brings us straight to that main analogy they used. You don't learn to swim by just reading about swimming, right? You've got to get in the water, you have to actually speak. Okay, so let's tackle those first hurdles. Why do we freeze? You're talking maybe to a native speaker, and boom, this massive urge to get every single word perfect just slams the brakes on everything.
Right, and the sources really pinpoint this back to mental translation. That's the process where you hear English, you translate it into your own language in your head, figure out your reply there, translate that back into English, and then finally speak.
Wow. Just describing it sounds tiring.
It really is. One source used this fantastic image. They said it's like walking uphill with a backpack full of rocks. That cognitive load, it basically guarantees two things. First, you're going to sound hesitant, kind of choppy. And second, you'll probably just give up because it's too much work. Your brain just can't keep up that level of real-time translation.
Okay, so the real aim isn't just speaking English words. It's training your brain to skip that whole translation detour, to actually think in English. But that feels like a huge mental shift, especially when it comes to grammar.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the whole philosophy really pushes back against maybe how a lot of us were taught. There was this one quote that jumped out, something every learner should hear. Grammar should be your silent partner, not your boss.
A silent partner. Okay,
Mhm.
what does that actually look like? Because, for many people, grammar feels like the strict teacher in charge.
Well, it means understanding its role. Grammar helps make things clear, sure, but it shouldn't be jamming up the works. If you stop mid-flow to double-check your tense or worry about a preposition, you kill the conversation's rhythm instantly. The sources noted how traditional classes often get really heavy on the drills, the rules, the tests.
Yeah, the theory.
Exactly, instead of just practicing actual, messy, real-world talkings.
Hmm.
So you end up knowing the rules perfectly, but you're scared to actually talk because you're so focused on being correct, not connecting.
And that moment, you let go of that demand for perfection. That seems to be where the real change happens. I really like how they framed fluency as like a psychological win. Fluency starts when fear ends.
Yeah, rethinking that fear is crucial. We
Mhm.
need to start seeing mistakes not as failures, but as data points, information. The sources had this really positive spin. Every mistake is proof that you're learning. If you see errors as just necessary steps, a lot of that pressure just evaporates.
It makes so much sense if you think about how kids learn their first language, right?
Right.
They don't sit down with grammar books first, they just talk. They
Sure.
make tons of funny mistakes and they get corrected, but it's usually in context, not like a formal lesson. We adult learners, we kind of need to give ourselves permission to be messy too.
Precisely. And let's be real about the people you're actually talking to. Native speakers, they aren't perfect robots either. Listen closely to any casual chat. You hear fillers all the time, like constantly. I know when I get nervous, I lean heavily on, so we all do it. So this pressure we put on ourselves for like perfect textbook English, it's just not necessary. Even fluent speakers are a bit messy.
That's such a relief to hear, honestly. It gives you permission to relax. And the sources had a great story backing this up, didn't they? About a student who knew English really well on paper, but was just too shy, too scared to speak for years. But then she joined this speak only club, a space where it was all about just talking, no correcting, and apparently her fluency just like shot up in months. It really shows that just doing it consistently is the key.
It's like the difference between studying blueprints and actually picking up a hammer and building something, theory versus practice.
Okay, so we face the fear, we've told grammar to be our silent partner, But how do we actually do this? How do we retrain our brain and mouth? Let's get into those two really practical techniques the sources highlighted.
Right. These are designed specifically to force you to produce language and build that muscle memory we talked about. They're sort of shortcuts to get around your own internal editor.
Okay, technique one, shadowing. Sounds a bit mysterious, maybe,
Mm.
but it's actually pretty simple.
Deceptively simple, yeah. Shadowing is basically listening to a native speaker, maybe a short clip from a show, or even this deep dive, and you repeat what they say immediately, almost like you're their echo. You're trying to copy everything, the rhythm, the ups and downs, the pronunciation, exactly as they say it.
Okay, but how does just repeating help with fluency? Isn't it just mimicry?
Well, it's more of a physical workout for your mouth. You're so focused on the sound and the rhythm, not on constructing sentences in your head. It helps stop that mental translation loop. You're basically training your mouth, your tongue, all the muscles involved to make English sounds and phrases automatically. The sources suggest starting small, like 3 to 5 second chunks, and repeating them maybe 3 times. Do that consistently, and you start to physically pave the way for words to just come out more naturally.
That makes total sense. You're teaching your speech muscles the moves without the brain interfering too much.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the really wild one, technique two, the 1 minute talk.
This one is pure psychological combat against that inner perfectionist voice. It's dead simple to describe. Pick a random, easy topic, like really simple coffee, my favorite shoes, bananas. Set a timer for just 1 minute and talk about that topic nonstop.
And the key rule, the really hard part is absolutely no stopping.
Yeah.
No correcting yourself. Like if you stumble, you just keep going. Wrong word, wrong tense, doesn't matter. Just keep the sound flowing.
Exactly. Keep the engine running. This is pure mental training. And I know what you might be thinking. Hang on, if I just talk garbage for a minute, how is that helpful?
Yeah, that's the question. If it's just a messy ramble, what's the actual benefit?
The benefit is learning to override your internal critic. The main goal here isn't perfect sentences. It's psychological. You're teaching your brain that it's okay to keep talking, even if it's not perfect, even if it's messy or grammatically flawed. It forces your brain to grab whatever vocabulary it has right now instantly. And honestly, people are often amazed at how much they can actually say when they just switch off that overanalyzer. It's like a tiny 60-second win against self-censorship every time you do it.
Wow, okay, that's a powerful concept. So let's shift to the long game then. Consistency. These aren't just one-time tricks. What kind of ongoing habits did the sources suggest?
They really pushed creating a strict no translation zone when you practice. Say you're talking with a friend or a study partner. Pick random topics, travel, food, what you hope to do next year, whatever, and then you enforce, say, a 5-minute rule. Nobody switches back to their native language for comfort, no matter what.
Right, that forces you into that thinking in English mode under a bit of pressure. But how do you actually track if you're getting better with this kind of practice? It feels less measurable than like a grammar test?
That's where self-recording comes in. The sources were big on this. One host called recording yourself speaking like having a mirror for your English.
Oh.
Yeah, it can be a bit cringy at first, listening to your own voice,
Oh, tell me about it.
but it's incredibly valuable.
What does hearing yourself actually give you?
It gives you objective data, cold, hard facts about your speech. You start noticing patterns you weren't aware of, maybe that one pronunciation issue you keep making, or the 3 filler words you rely on constantly, or maybe specific grammar points that always trip you up when you speak quickly. You just become aware of your habits. And then over time, listening back week after week, you can literally hear the improvement. And that concrete proof that you're getting better, that's hugely motivating.
So what this all boils down to for you, listening right now, the big takeaway from all these sources seems to be that getting fluent isn't really about having some special language talent. It's not a gift. It's really about courage and consistency. It's like training those speaking muscles, hitting the gym regularly, and accepting that, yeah, some workouts are going to be messy.
That's spot on. Fluency really comes from using the language, not just knowing about it. We need to kind of copy how kids learn. They just jump in, make a million mistakes, and stay in that conversational flow. The only edge we have as adults is we can reflect and fix those mistakes later. But the key is having the courage to speak first.
Okay, so let's wrap with those key actions again. Ditch that mental translation habit, that backpack of rocks. Make grammar your helpful but quiet partner. And give that 1 minute talk a try, maybe even today. Embrace the mess.
And just remember that core idea. The aim is connection, not perfection. It was interesting how the sources pointed out native speakers make small errors all the time. They just don't seem to care as much.
Which leads us perfectly to our final thought for you this week. If fluency really does start when the fear stops, think about this. What specific conversation, maybe even a really short one, can you start this week where you consciously enforce a no grammar police allowed rule for yourself? Just go for it. Talk first, think later.